Recently, Jonathan Roumie was on The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon, and he ended up spending the first half of the interview talking about being an intern on SNL and doing celebrity voice impersonations. This has left a few people scratching their heads. I even found one popular YouTuber who said, I don't know, maybe Jonathan's just been getting bored answering the same questions. Why didn't he spend more time talking about The Chosen or Jesus? I mean, he was there to promote The Chosen, right? Why was the first half of his interview about completely different stuff? Was it a mistake or was it out of boredom?
30 years ago, I was an intern for Saturday Night Live.
Wow. No. Now you're.
Hi, friends. I'm Amy Catapan. I'm a Catholic author, speaker, and educator. And I'm also a huge fan of The Chosen. So every once in a while, I like to pop on my YouTube channel and share a little video, share some thoughts about The Chosen, especially when I can connect it with either my writing career or my teaching career. And today we're going to put all three of those together because I am going to argue that what Jonathan did on The Tonight Show was not a mistake at all. It was purposeful. And it was actually a really smart move and something that every writer should know, every teacher should know. And I'm even going to argue that the tactic he used was something, well, the kind of thing Jesus himself might have done. So on The Tonight Show, Jonathan started by talking about how he was an intern at SNL. This is a tactic that every teacher knows as meeting your students where they are. People don't tune into The Tonight Show to learn about Jesus or even a show about Jesus. People tune into The Tonight Show to be entertained and to learn about new things in entertainment, like new movies, new TV shows, musicians, and check up on some of their favorite celebs. So Jonathan has to meet The Tonight Show audience where they are, and even better, meet the host where he is. Jimmy Fallon used to be on SNL. The Tonight Show films at 30 Rock, which is the building where SNL is filmed. So Jonathan has to meet the audience and the host where they are. They're going to understand as soon as he jumps in and says, oh yeah, this is a full circle moment for me because 30 years ago, I was an intern in this building for SNL. Immediately, he's made a connection with Jimmy Fallon and the audience. So these people who might have heard at the beginning of the show that there was going to be a guy who plays Jesus coming on and might have been like, oh, great, now we're going to get some preachy guy on. When he starts off talking about being on SNL, well, suddenly he's relatable to everybody in the audience because they're like, oh, we know Saturday Night Live. Oh, this guy must have a good sense of humor if he used to be an intern on that show. Again, this is a tactic every teacher knows. If you want to teach your students, you've got to figure out where they're at, what do they already know, build that connection on some shared experience, and then lift it up to the next level.
A lot of people might know your voice because you were the voice on MTV's Celebrity Deathmatch.
Yes, there was
Which I love that show. I used to watch that all the time.
All right, so then the next thing that Jonathan does is he does some of his celebrity voice impersonations. Now, if you follow me on Instagram, you actually saw that I correctly guessed this is what he was going to do. And to me, it was kind of obvious. So I put a poll on Instagram asking people, what do you think Jimmy will ask Jonathan to do? Play drums. I mean, we do know Jimmy loves his musical guests. Do some voice impersonations, because if you know Jimmy, you also know that he loves celebrity voice impersonations, or just do some of his fun accents, because if you're a fan of Jonathan Roumie, you know that he can do all sorts of different accents, not just the Middle Eastern one that he uses on The Chosen, but he's also played French characters and Italian characters. He can do all sorts of accents. So how did I know that it would be specifically the MTV Celebrity Deathmatch voices that Jonathan would do? Well, it's actually pretty easy, right? Jonathan, Jimmy, and I are actually all the same age. So this is like a generational thing that they can connect on. Plus, Jimmy loves the voices. So you know that it has to come up, right? And once again, he is meeting his audience where they are. Okay, he is making a connection with them. Second, this is what every writer would call a hook. You have to hook your audience in. So Jonathan kind of hooks the audience in twice. First, by talking about SNL, they're intrigued. How could a guy who plays Jesus now have been on SNL? That seems a little contradictory. And then two, he doesn't just play Jesus, he can also do all these other voices. And so now they're really intrigued. Who is this guy who plays Jesus in a TV show and has done Marlon Brando and Ray Romano voices? So he's hooking the audience in. This is something every writer knows, and he's meeting the audience where they're at by talking about things they're into. That way, he has set the stage for halfway into the interview, switching to talk about The Chosen, because now they're with him. He seems relatable. He seems like a guy who's interesting, and they're going to wonder how a guy like this would do with playing Jesus. So I think this is a very purposeful and smart move that Jonathan made. Finally, let's talk about why I think this is something that even Jesus might have done. So if you've read either of my books for teachers, I got them back here, Sweet Jesus is a Junior, or A Saint Squad for Teachers, you might have read one of my sections about meeting our students where they are at, or one of my sections about building good relationships with our students. Jesus really did that. He spoke in a way that they understood, and he met them literally where they were. He didn't go to the synagogue and wait for students to come to him. He went to them. Where does he find the fishermen? Where does he find Simon, Andrew, James, and John? At the seashore when they're fishing. Where does he find Matthew, the tax collector? Not in the synagogue, in his tax booth, collecting taxes. And when he speaks to the fishermen, does he immediately jump into this high-level theological discussion? No. He speaks to them in a way that they understand. He talks about them being fishers of men, that they're going to now collect people for him instead of collecting fish. Jesus met his students, his disciples, where they were at, both literally and figuratively. So when he goes on these TV shows, he has to meet them where they're at. He's got to find a way to build that relationship with them first. Give them something that they need, just like Jesus made a whole bunch of fish appear when Simon and Andrew couldn't catch anything all night. He's giving them what they want. So when Jonathan goes onto The Tonight Show and he starts talking about being an SNL intern and starts doing an impersonation of Chris Farley and then going into all these other character voices, he's giving the audience what they want. They came to this taping of The Tonight Show to be entertained. And so he entertains them. He gives them what they're looking for. And then he can just hook them in so that maybe when that show is over, they went, what was that show again? Maybe we should check that out, because that guy actually looked like maybe he'd be a good Jesus and something I actually want to see. So I don't think this had anything to do with Jonathan being bored with the same questions. I do not think it was a mistake at all. I think it was completely purposeful, completely useful, and very helpful to getting other people interested in watching the show. Any writer, any teacher knows you have to hook them from the beginning, and you're going to meet them where they are when you do it.